Hey guys, it's Paradise, and if you thought you'd already seen the best and most broken builds in Elden Ring, then hold on to your socks because the bar just raised. This is the ultimate and most busted easy mode build I think I've seen, making even the most hardest bosses a complete joke. You can block and attack at the same time while taking almost no damage in return, and it's highly spammable. Imagine winning every trade you make while block attacking, laughing, and basically just spamming a button to beat the hardest bosses in the game and the DLC in your first try, because this build is just that dumb. It's probably going to get nerfed, so get on this while you can, and drop a like and comment if you do try the build out, because you won't believe how good it is until you've actually made it. First thing is first, a massive shout out to Only Waifu, an amazing Souls channel that discovered and posted about this, and we always make sure to credit other creators and community members when they discover things first, as we feel it's the right thing to do in this community. Only Waifu has some of the best and funniest content for Elden Ring, and we absolutely love watching it. This weapon is just so nuts that we had to take the concept and make our own build so you guys can easily get set up and running to take out those bosses you're struggling with. The first thing you need is to get the thrusting shield itself, and we're using the Carian Thrusting Shield, which is the best of the two available options so far. To get this, you need to have the storehouse back section grace point. If you don't have this, don't worry, we'll show you the route to get it, but if you do have it, just run to the west, past the ladder, into the room with the shadow enemies and the red mage at the back. Kill all of them and grab the shiny item on the floor at the back and it's yours. If you don't have the storehouse back section grace point, then you're going to start from the church district entrance and follow this route. So jump ahead onto the roof on the right and loop around. We want to run across the raised platform to jump onto this side ledge of the next area, loop around, jump to the right and jump forwards. There will be a mage on this rooftop that can shoot fireballs at you, so watch out. Otherwise, jump across onto this arc and run up to the top. There'll be a hole that we need to line ourselves up with to land on this platform that's raised, and then run forwards and jump through the crack. Watch out as we now go west because there will be a mage enemy, and even with a good build, these guys can be annoying if you mess up or if you're not fully concentrating. So take this mage out as this one will be quite annoying. Hopefully you have an easier time than me. Then run forwards to the second left room just here next to the second mage. Dodge the second mage, run forwards, and there'll be an elevator here. If you've already been here, you need to pull the lever. If not, you can just stand on the button in the middle to ride it to the top. At the top here, go straight left and you can grab the checkpoint, the grace point that we needed. Then just run left to the west past the ladder into this room with the mage enemy and all the shadow enemies and take everything out. They can actually nuke you down if you ignore them, but you could run past, I suppose, if you didn't want to worry about losing your runes. But right at the back of the room here, you can grab it. And now you have the busted Carian Thrusting Shield. This thing is infusible and Ash of War customizable, but let's go over why it's so incredible. Firstly, you can two-hand a thrusting shield, allowing you to block and attack at the same time. This concept isn't exactly new, but with this new weapon type, you take almost no damage or no stamina damage while doing this, meaning you only effectively lose stamina while spamming the attack and guarding, meaning you're practically invincible, but also continuously spamming damage out. This might be the aspect of it that gets nerfed, we'll have to wait and see. But on top of this, the moveset for the guard attack has no end lag or wind up, and it can just straight up be spammed, and this is again part of why it's so strong. On top of this normal moveset though, the charged attack and its regular attacks actually have guard points built into them, making it a powerhouse of survivability while also dishing out damage. Furthermore, the stance or poise damage of this weapon is also massive, so you get staggers all the time. And the thrusting shields also deal a rare type of damage called piercing damage, and this damage type has counter damage added into it, granting it additional damage, and it stacks with a talisman we'll get into later. This particular weapon also scales very well with keen and quality infusion types, with the capability of speccing into bleed or cold to even further add to why it's, well, kind of broken. For this build though, I'm going to recommend going with the quality infusion. This is because it gives us an insane B scaling in strength and dex, so we can max out our damage with just these two stats. Remember, you'll be taking no damage and spamming attacks, so the damage really racks up. The problem with going with the bleed infusion is that it lowers your primary scaling options to C in strength and dex, and of course requires some arcane to actually add to the bleed buildup. Basically, your damage is much lower, and you only really get one bleed proc per fight, making the quality infusion give you overall higher damage, and in my opinion it outclasses it from my testing. Also, there is a difference in 2-hit killing a mob with quality or 3 to 4-hit killing a mob with bleed. So this is just my suggestion as to why I prefer quality. Now grab the Cragblade Ash of War here on the map, there's a scarab by the Sword Monument, and slap it onto the Carian Thrusting Shield. You can use this before a fight to get a 60-second buff that gives you 15% more physical damage and 10% more stance or poise damage, which are two things this weapon excels at, so this buff is really great. Make sure you plus it to plus 25 so you can get the maximum damage, and now you have the weapon ready, you just need the rest of the setup. So next, let's go over the gear that you're going to want to have to put this build together, and then we'll go into the stats. I recommend using the Claw Mark Seal, as this also scales with strength, which we do have a decent amount of, effectively allowing you to bring offensive incantations if you want to, but we're really just going to be using this to buff. And for the actual spells that we're going to be bringing, it's going to be the old classics Golden Vow. This will boost your attack and defense. Flame grant me strength to give you more physical and fire damage, and then Bestial Vitality, which will be a nice heal over time. As you take the smallest amounts of chip damage, you'll then be healing it back up. And then for our armor and helmet, there's a few options you could go with. I don't think the helmet matters that much, but the Curse Blade Mask will give you plus 5 dexterity, and there is a strength version of this. It's down here, the Horned Warrior Helmet, that will give you plus 5 strength. So 5 strength or 5 dex are going to add to our damage either way for this, but put on whatever helmet you want. They are just strong stat boosting ones. For armor, you could go Rakshasas if you want to have additional damage, but you'll take additional damage. To be honest, the damage trade-off isn't too bad there because we're super tanky, almost invulnerable with this build, but the alternative is to go for super high poise armor, something like the Tree Sentinel, or even higher if you want to. So I'm rocking the Tree Sentinel and the Malformed, as I like the way this sort of all looks together. For our Talismans though, there's a few options that are going to greatly buff our damage. The Spear Talisman enhances counter attacks, which it says is unique to thrusting weapons. Because we do pierce damage, we can actually benefit from using this in this build to further increase our pierce damage. The Two-Handed Sword Talisman is a no-brainer because we need to two-hand the actual thrusting shield so that we can block and attack at the same time, so this reduces our damage even more. And then we can use the Great Shield Talisman to further boost our guarding ability, which helps keep our stamina high. And speaking of stamina, for our last slot, this one's kind of interchangeable. Again, you could go Dragon Crest or Pearl Drake, depending on what you're fighting for physical or non-physical damage negation. You could also go things like the Erdtree's Favor, or if you don't have for some reason you want to go with the heaviest armor in the game, you could always put the Jar Arsenal on. But my recommendation would either be the two-headed Green Turtle Talisman. You can use the Green Turtle or the Two-Headed Turtle Talisman. This is the upgraded version. This is going to help with our stamina because we're going to be taking different stamina damage. We're going to be spamming the attack. We will run out of stamina at a certain point because we'll be spamming our attack. But with this, we just recharge it so quickly. It's actually insane. Then we have our Wondrous Physick mix, and there's a few different options you can go for here. So I recommend the Viridian Hidden Tear because this gives you infinite stamina for a short duration. This allows you to start a boss fight and just go ham, literally not losing any stamina as you're guarding and attacking and spamming. So this one's pretty good too. Then you have your second slot, and for this second slot, you could either go with the Thorny Crack Tear because you're hitting so quickly, you'll build up those consecutive attacks, but you could also go for the Stone Barb Crack Tear, as this will help you deal even more stance damage. And remember, we have the Ash of War that buffs our stance damage and physical damage. We already deal really high stance damage, and then the Stone Barbed Crack Tear is going to further add to that even more. Of course, on top of this, you can kind of go with what you want. You could use the Blood-Sucking Tear for 20% more damage, but you will drain your health. Obviously, outside of that, if you're still struggling, you could go with extra defensive things like the Opaline one here, but honestly, I don't think you'll need that. The final recommendation would be the Deflecting Hard Tear. This further increases your guard mitigation and gives you the spontaneous guard for countering, so this is a good option as well. But I have been really enjoying the Thorny and the Stone Barb, as I just like to go ham and the damage is just crazy. I already feel like the damage mitigation and the guard potential is already really high with this build. So next, let's go over the stats. So for Vigor, I recommend between 50 and 60. I've gone with 55 here, but you could go down to 50 or up to 60 if you want to. 60 seems to be the preferred standard for people in the DLC. Things obviously hit hard and very quickly, but again, we have so much tankiness with this build. 55 or 50 will do you just fine as well. For Mind, 15 is actually a really nice amount to have, as it allows us to do all of our buffs without actually needing to pot, or just using one pot if you want to further use your Ash of War more. For Endurance though, I would actually juice this up to 30 to 35. This allows you to put on some heavy armor and have some good stamina to play with, as we will be utilizing stamina quite heavily. Then we have Dex and Strength, and for these two, you kind of want to go as high as you can with these. Basically 55 will be the soft cap for our damage with these, so 50 to 55 is ideal on these, but we're dumping Int, we're dumping Arcane, and we do actually want to go 25 with Faith so that we can take that Golden Order Vow and the other buffs. So that's the kind of spread that we're looking for, as high Dex and Strength as possible, 25 Faith, around 35 Endurance, around 15 Mind, and then 50 to 60 Vigor if possible. So guys, that's the build. Please tell me if you're trying it out because it's so much fun. Yes, this is going to massively help in the final boss fight if you're struggling with it. This thing just lets you face tank him and go absolute ham. So drop a like and comment if we've helped you out with this, and subscribe for more Elden Ring coming your way very, very soon.